Imagine the flicker of lanterns in the midnight dark, the scent of incense curling through humid air, the hushed reverence of those leaving offerings for spirits unseen. In China, festivals for the dead are not just somber rituals. They are vibrant, living traditions that blur the line between our world and the next. And presiding over this shadowy realm, there is one figure more compelling, more paradoxical, and more utterly human than any other. He is not a handsome hero or a distant, untouchable god. He is Zhong Kui, a man so tragically ugly he was shunned by the living, yet so virtuous and powerful that he became the undisputed king of ghosts. This is not a simple legend of good versus evil, but something far richer. A story that challenges everything we think we know about beauty, belonging, and what it truly means to be righteous. At first glance, Zhong Kui's tale seems like a tragedy. Picture a brilliant scholar, his mind sharp and his heart full of ambition, ready to serve his emperor and country. But the world judged him not by the content of his character, but by the harsh lines of his face. He was called monstrous, repellent, hideous, his appearance so shocking it overshadowed his immense intellect. In a society that prized harmony and aesthetics, he was an outcast, rejected at the highest court despite his talents. His despair led him to take his own life at the very steps of the palace. It's a heartbreaking beginning, one that speaks to that deep, universal fear of not being seen for who we truly are. But here is where the story transforms into something extraordinary. Death was not an end for Zhong Kui, it was a beginning. In the underworld, his true nature could no longer be hidden by a misunderstood face. The Emperor of the Dead recognized his unwavering integrity, his fierce sense of justice, and granted him a divine purpose. Armed with a demon-slaying sword and accompanied by a host of phantom bats, Zhong Kui returned to the world of the living not as a vengeful spirit but as a protector. He became the demon Queller, vanquishing evil forces that preyed upon humanity, and the compassionate king of ghosts, offering solace and order to lost souls. His ugliness, once a curse, became a symbol of his power, a terrifying visage meant to strike fear into the hearts of malevolent beings. This is the epic journey we're about to explore together, how the most rejected among us became one of mythology's most revered and complex figures, and why his story continues to resonate centuries later. To understand why Zhong Kui's story took root so deeply, we need to step back into one of China's most glorious eras, the Tang Dynasty. This was a golden age of poetry, art, and immense cultural power, centered around the dazzling capital of Chang'an. It was during the reign of Emperor Xuanzong, a ruler known for both his early brilliance and his eventual decline, that the legend of Zhong Kui is first officially recorded. The story didn't appear in a dusty religious text, but in the court itself, born from the emperor's own fever dream. As the tale goes, the emperor fell gravely ill after a grand celebration. In his fevered state, he was tormented by a small, malicious demon who brazenly stole his personal treasures and played tricks on his concubines. The emperor felt powerless against this invisible foe. Then, in a burst of spectral energy, a much larger figure appeared. He was a giant of a man, gruesomely ugly, wearing a tattered official's cap. With swift, brutal efficiency, he captured the little demon, gouged out its eyes, and devoured it. When the emperor, both terrified and grateful, asked for his name, the spectre bowed and introduced himself as Zhong Kui. He explained that he was the scholar who had been wrongfully denied the title of top graduate decades earlier due to his appearance and had chosen death over disgrace. But he had made a vow to dedicate his afterlife to protecting the emperor and his realm from all evil spirits. Upon waking, miraculously healed, Emperor Xuanzong immediately summoned his court painter, the renowned Wu Daoist, and commanded him to create a portrait of the ghost Queller based on the emperor's detailed description. This painting, depicting Zhong Kui in all his terrifying glory, was then copied and distributed throughout the empire with an imperial decree, instructing citizens to display it at New Year's to ward off evil. This single act, blending imperial authority with popular belief, catapulted Zhong Kui from an obscure folktale into a nationally recognized cultural icon. But the soil for this story was already fertile. Chinese society has always maintained a profound and intricate relationship with the spirit world, a concept known as the other world. This wasn't a distant heaven or hell, but a parallel dimension intimately connected to daily life. Ancestral spirits required placation, hungry ghosts needed appeasement, and local deities demanded respect. This worldview was a complex tapestry woven from threads of ancient folk religion, which saw spirits in every mountain and stream, and the more structured philosophies of Daoism. Daoism, with its pantheon of deities and detailed maps of the afterlife, provided a framework for understanding figures like Zhong Kui. He became incorporated into Daoist ritual as a powerful guardian, a celestial official appointed by the underworld court. His legend resonated because it spoke to fundamental cultural values, the triumph of true scholarship and virtue over superficial judgment, the importance of loyalty to the emperor and the state even after death, and the ever-present need for a powerful protector in the constant, unseen war between order and chaos in the spiritual realm. He was the ultimate outsider who was granted ultimate authority, a comforting symbol that justice, even if denied in life, would eventually be served in the grand court of the cosmos. To grasp the full weight of his tragedy, we must understand the world Zhong Kui sought to enter. The imperial examination system was the very heart of the Chinese meritocratic ideal, a grueling, multi-year gauntlet of tests that could elevate a humble scholar from a remote village to the highest echelons of power in the Forbidden City. For a young man like Zhong Kui, born in the Zhongnan mountain region, this system was his only path to glory, his sole chance to prove his worth to the empire. He wasn't from a wealthy, well-connected family. His currency was his intellect. He poured every ounce of his being into his studies, mastering the classic texts, composing elegant poetry, and formulating profound answers to complex questions of statecraft and philosophy. His mind was a razor-sharp instrument, and when he finally traveled to the capital to sit for the exams, he didn't just pass, he excelled. He achieved the highest score, earning the coveted title of top graduate, or Zhuangyuan. In that moment, standing at the pinnacle of scholarly achievement, he must have believed his future was assured, that the content of his character had finally triumphed over the curse of his appearance. The court audience with the emperor should have been his greatest triumph, a ceremonial confirmation of his new rank. Instead, it became his public humiliation. As he knelt before the dragon throne, the grand hall fell into a stunned, uneasy silence. Court officials whispered behind their sleeves, and even the emperor himself, likely the illustrious Xuanzong, recoiled in shock and revulsion. Historical texts and legends describe Zhong Kui's features in stark, terrifying terms. A face like iron, bulging eyes, a wild, unkempt beard, and a physique that was powerful but brutish. He was the antithesis of the refined, graceful scholar official the court was accustomed to. In that culture, which deeply valued harmony and aesthetic balance, physical ugliness was often conflated with moral corruption or a disordered spirit. The emperor, faced with this walking breach of protocol, made a catastrophic, snap judgment. He could not and would not bestow the highest honors upon a man whose very visage was an offense to the court's dignity. The title of Zhuangyuan was revoked. The prestigious official post he had earned was denied. His brilliant mind, his years of dedication, his perfect test scores, all of it was rendered meaningless in an instant, erased by a single, superficial glance. The crushing injustice of this moment is almost unbearable to contemplate. This wasn't a mere failure, it was a profound, public shaming that stripped him of his identity and his destiny. The system designed to reward virtue and talent had instead revealed its deepest flaw. the human capacity for prejudice. He wasn't deemed unworthy because he lacked skill or knowledge, but because his face didn't fit the ideal. The emperor's rejection was more than a personal insult. It was a negation of the entire Confucian ideal that underpinned the empire itself. Devastated and drowning in a wave of shame and righteous fury, Zhong Kui saw only one way to protest such a fundamental betrayal. In a final, desperate act of defiance, he marched to the granite steps of the palace and took his own life, choosing a martyr's death over a life of disgrace. His blood, spilled on the symbol of imperial power, was his ultimate testament to a broken system. This act of tragic protest, however, would not be the end of his story. It was merely the violent, painful birth of his true legend, setting the stage for a return far more powerful than any earthly appointment. And so, with his name erased and his future stolen, Zhong Kui stood on the polished stone steps of the imperial palace, utterly alone in a crowd of murmuring officials. The grand title of Zhuangyuan, the highest honor a scholar could achieve, had been his for only a few fleeting moments before it was ripped away. The emperor's decree was final, his judgment absolute. We can only imagine the storm of emotions that must have raged within him, the bitter taste of betrayal, the searing heat of humiliation, and the crushing weight of a despair so profound it eclipsed all else. His entire life's purpose, built upon the foundational belief that virtue and intellect would be rewarded, had been publicly and brutally invalidated. In that culture where honor was paramount and shame could extend to one's entire family, this rejection was a social death sentence. To be cast out by the emperor himself was to be rendered a ghost among the living, an exile without a place in the world he had striven so hard to join. With nowhere to go and no future to envision, he made a final, devastating choice. He turned his formidable will, once focused on mastering classical texts, toward ending his own life. He took his own life right there on the palace steps, a final, silent protest against the injustice he had endured. His blood, staining the emperor's courtyard, was a stark testament to the colossal failure of a system that prized appearance over essence. Yet from this ultimate act of personal tragedy, a legend of cosmic justice was about to be born. In his final moments, Zhong Kui did not go quietly into that dark night. His death was not a passive surrender but a thunderous, violent act of protest. Standing on the very stones that represented the pinnacle of imperial power that had just been denied to him, he channeled all his shame, his rage, and his profound sense of betrayal into one last defiant gesture. With a cry that was part anguish and part curse, he hurled himself forward, dashing his head against the unyielding marble steps of the palace. It was a brutal, shocking end for a scholar, a final bloody exclamation point on a life cut short by prejudice. The legends say the courtyard ran red, a visceral stain on the seat of power, a permanent mark of the emperor's failure to see true virtue. In some versions of the tale, his spirit, boiling with unresolved fury, lingers just long enough to utter a curse, not a wish for petty revenge, but a condemnation of the shallow judgment that values a handsome face over a righteous heart. He vowed that even in death he would return to protect the empire from the very evils that had just claimed him, the demons of vanity, injustice, and superficiality. This climactic act transformed him from a wronged man into something far greater, a martyr. His suicide was the ultimate price paid to expose a fatal flaw in the system, a sacrifice that would ironically grant him the power and recognition he was denied in life. It was the end of Zhong Kui, the mortal scholar, and the violent, necessary birth of Zhong Kui, the king of ghosts. Yet this violent end was not a conclusion. In the silence that followed his death, something extraordinary began to unfold. His spirit, unmoored from its mortal form, did not dissipate into the ether as one might expect. Instead, all the potential denied in life, the brilliant intellect, the fierce sense of justice, the burning righteousness coalesced into an unstoppable force. His profound anger was not a destructive fire but a refining one, forging his essence into something entirely new. he descended into the underworld not as a meek, lost soul, but as a formidable presence that immediately commanded attention. The tales describe how the very corridors of the afterlife shook with his arrival, his spiritual power so immense it could not be ignored. The celestial bureaucracy of the underworld, a mirror of the imperial court he had just left, took immediate notice. Here was a soul of unparalleled virtue, wronged by the living world, his integrity shining all the brighter for having been so brutally tested. The Yama kings, the stern judges of the dead, recognized in him a quality they desperately needed, an unwavering commitment to justice, completely untainted by the worldly concerns of beauty or status that had corrupted his earthly judges. They saw not a monster but a perfect candidate for a divine office. In a magnificent twist of cosmic irony, the emperor who had rejected him for his ugliness was now replaced by underworld sovereigns who appointed him precisely because of the strength of his character. They bestowed upon him a new title and a sacred duty, to become the demon Queller, the divine enforcer of the spirit world. He was given authority over all ghosts and malevolent entities, armed with a mighty sword and accompanied by a host of phantom bats that could sniff out evil. His terrifying visage, once the cause of his rejection, became his greatest asset, a tool to strike fear into the hearts of demons and a symbol of his absolute authority over the darkness. He was no longer the scholar who was not enough, he was the king of ghosts, and his reign had just begun. The emperor's peaceful slumber was shattered by a nightmare that felt more real than his waking hours. It began with a creeping chill, a shadow detaching itself from the corner of his royal chamber. This was no ordinary bad dream. It was a visceral assault by a small, grotesque demon, its form shifting and mocking. The creature, known in some tales as a little devil or a malevolent spirit, represented a very specific kind of chaos. It danced just out of reach, a manifestation of the emperor's deepest anxieties. It stole his favorite jade scepter, a symbol of his imperial authority, and taunted his most cherished concubines, representing the vulnerability of his personal joy and his duty to protect his household. Emperor Xuanzong, the son of heaven who commanded vast armies, was rendered utterly powerless against this spectral pestilence. He could only watch, paralyzed in his dream state, as the foundations of his orderly world were gleefully dismantled by an invisible foe. This torment was far more than a random nocturnal fright. It was a physical manifestation of a guilty conscience and a kingdom in spiritual disarray. The emperor's feverish illness, which history records, was the perfect breeding ground for such a vision. His body's weakness mirrored a perceived weakness in his reign, and his subconscious conjured a demon that embodied every insecurity. The little devil was the chaos of a poorly judged decision, the ghost of a scholar wronged, and the creeping fear that his mandate from heaven might be slipping away, all swirling together into a single, terrifying form that he could not fight with soldiers or edicts. Just as the emperor's despair reached its peak, a second figure erupted into the dreamscape. This was no subtle apparition but a seismic event. The air grew heavy, and a new presence filled the room, vast and terrifying. It was Zhong Kui, but transformed. No longer the despairing scholar, he was now a giant of spectral might, his famously ugly features amplified into a mask of divine fury meant to terrify evil itself. His eyes burned with righteous fire, his tattered scholar's cap a stark reminder of the title that was stolen from him, now worn like a crown of a different sort. He moved with a purpose that was both brutal and efficient. He did not merely confront the little demon, he ended it. With breathtaking ferocity, he seized the cackling creature, gouged out its eyes to blind it to its mischief, and then, in a final act of ultimate conquest, devoured it. This act of consumption is profoundly significant in mythology. It wasn't just about destruction, it was about assimilation. Zhong Kui didn't just defeat chaos, he took its power into himself, neutralizing its threat completely and demonstrating his total mastery over the spirit world. The chamber fell silent, the oppressive weight of the nightmare lifted, and in its place stood this awe-inspiring and fearsome protector. Trembling, yet filled with a profound sense of relief and gratitude, the emperor found his voice. He asked the mighty spectre who he was and why he had come to his aid. The figure bowed, a gesture of respect that carried the dignity of a court official, and spoke his name, Zhong Kui. He recounted his story, the brilliant scholar, the unjust rejection based on his face, the tragic suicide on the very steps of this palace. But then he revealed the cosmic justice that had followed. He explained how the underworld courts, recognizing his virtue and the grave injustice done to him, had granted him a new role and a sacred vow. His oath was not one of vengeance against the emperor who wronged him, but of loyalty. He had sworn to protect the realm of the Tang Emperor from all malicious spirits, to become the empire's eternal demon Queller. His redemption was not about undoing the past, but about transcending it through a service far greater than any mortal post. He emerged from the emperor's nightmare not as a ghost from the past, but as the kingdom's promised protector for the future. Upon waking, bathed in sweat but miraculously cured of his fever, Emperor Xuanzong understood the immense power of the vision. It was a pardon from beyond the grave, a second chance granted to him by the very man he had condemned. The nightmare, born from guilt and chaos, had become the vessel for a divine solution, transforming a personal tragedy into a national legend and setting the stage for Zhong Kui's eternal reign. The atmosphere in the emperor's bedchamber shifted from one of helpless terror to something else entirely, a sense of awe so profound it bordered on fear. The little demon's mocking cackles were abruptly silenced, not by a shout, but by the sheer, overwhelming presence that now filled the room. This was no mere spirit, it was a force of nature given form. The air grew thick and heavy, shimmering with a spectral energy that made the lantern flames gutter and dance, and then he was there, towering over the cowering emperor. This was Zhong Kui reborn, but not as the shattered scholar. His form was colossal, a giant clad in the tattered robes of an official, his face a terrifying mask of divine wrath that made his mortal ugliness seem gentle by comparison. His eyes burned with a fierce, righteous light, and in his hand he gripped a massive, gleaming sword that seemed to drink the light from the room. He did not even glance at the emperor. His entire being was focused on the source of the corruption, the impish creature that had just moments ago believed itself invincible. The confrontation was not a battle, it was an execution. The little demon, sensing the absolute authority radiating from this new spectre, let out a squeal of pure panic and tried to flee, but it was too late. With a motion too swift for the eye to follow, Zhong Kui's free hand shot out and seized the creature. There was no grand speech, no dramatic monologue. His actions were brutally efficient, a testament to his new purpose. He pinned the squirming fiend and, with a terrifying finality, gouged out its eyes, a symbolic blinding of its malicious intent, ensuring it could never again seek out weakness to exploit. But Zhong Kui's justice did not end there. To complete the purification, to utterly annihilate this embodiment of chaos, he did the unimaginable. He brought the demon to his mouth and devoured it. This act of consumption is one of the most powerful and shocking in all his mythology. It wasn't about hunger, it was about absolute conquest. By taking the demon into himself, Zhong Kui didn't just defeat it. He absorbed its essence, neutralizing its threat completely and demonstrating his total dominion over all forms of evil. The room fell into a silence deeper than any the emperor had ever known. As the last vestiges of the nightmare receded, replaced by this shocking new reality, Emperor Xuanzong found himself staring up at his savior. The initial wave of terror began to subside, replaced by a dawning, profound gratitude. The spectral giant now turned his gaze upon the ruler, and the fury in his eyes softened, not into warmth, but into a stern and unwavering resolve. The emperor, his voice a trembling whisper, finally asked the question that hung in the air between them. "Who are you, mighty spirit, that you would come to my aid?" The figure bowed, a gesture that carried the formal dignity of the highest court official, and when he spoke, his voice was like the rumble of distant thunder, resonant with both power and an ancient, unmistakable sorrow. "I am Zhong Kui," he declared, and in those 3 words the emperor's entire world tilted on its axis. He was face to face with the ghost of the man he had personally wronged, the scholar whose life he had shattered with a single, shallow judgment. But what came next was even more astounding than his appearance. Zhong Kui did not level accusations. He did not seek revenge. Instead, with a grace that shamed the emperor's own past actions, he simply told his story. He spoke of his dedication to his studies, his journey to the capital, and the cruel injustice of his rejection. He recounted his ultimate despair and the vow he made upon his death, a vow heard and honored by the courts of the underworld. The Yama kings, judges of the dead, had seen his unshakable virtue and appointed him as their celestial enforcer. His mission, his sacred oath, was now to protect the Tang Empire and its emperor from the very forces of chaos that had just been vanquished. His return was not an act of vengeance, but one of transcendent loyalty. He had taken the emperor's greatest failure and transformed it into the empire's greatest safeguard. As the vision began to fade, the emperor was left with one overwhelming truth. The most powerful protector his dynasty would ever know was the one man he had once deemed unworthy to even stand in his court. If the emperor's nightmare gave Zhong Kui his purpose, then his iconic appearance is the terrifying, magnificent uniform of his office. This is no longer the face of a rejected scholar. It is a masterfully crafted instrument of supernatural authority, designed to communicate power and intent without a single word spoken. Imagine a visage where every feature is amplified to strike awe and fear into the hearts of malevolent spirits. His skin is often depicted as a furious, fiery crimson, a color that in Chinese culture is synonymous with luck and vitality, but also with fierce, untamable energy, the same vibrant hue used to ward off evil during festivals. This is not the flush of embarrassment he might have felt in life, but the blazing aura of his divine power. His eyes bulge wide, unblinking, and see all. They are whirlpools of righteous fury, capable of seeing through the cleverest demonic disguises and peering into the darkest corners of the human heart where evil thoughts fester. Framing this formidable face is a wild, untamed beard, a storm of black bristles that speaks of immense primal strength and a rejection of the refined, polished aesthetics of the court that once spurned him. His clothing is a powerful paradox that tells his entire story at a glance. He wears the traditional robes and black boots of a Tang Dynasty scholar official, the very uniform he was deemed too ugly to wear in life. But these robes are now tattered and torn, frayed at the edges from his constant, relentless battles through the spirit world. He often stands with one foot raised, forever in motion, a restless guardian on an eternal patrol. This attire is a permanent reminder of the system that failed him, now worn not as a symbol of earthly rank, but as a celestial mandate far exceeding it. He is the ultimate scholar, his intellect and virtue so potent they transcended death itself. But a scholar needs his tools, and Zhong Kui's are not for writing poetry. In one hand, he grips his legendary demon-subduing sword, a blade of immense spiritual power said to be bestowed upon him by the underworld courts. This is no ordinary weapon. It is a divine instrument that can vanquish evil with a single touch, a physical extension of his unwavering will for justice. In his other hand, he often carries a special fan, an object that might seem out of place until you understand its profound purpose. This is not for cooling himself. It is a ritual object, sometimes called a wish-granting fan. With it, he can grant peace and safe passage to benevolent or lost spirits, guiding them to their proper rest. It represents the other, compassionate side of his duty. He is not merely a destroyer, but a discerning judge and a protector. Together, the sword and the fan embody the perfect balance of his role, the capacity for fearsome punishment against evil and the merciful guidance for those who deserve it. This complete image, the ferocious face, the tattered robes of office, the sword of destruction, and the fan of mercy, fused together to create an instantly recognizable symbol of protection that resonated through centuries of Chinese art and folklore. Waking with a start, Emperor Xuanzong found his fever had broken, his body drenched in sweat but his mind clearer than it had been in days. The terrifying clarity of the dream clung to him, not as a fading nightmare but as a profound revelation. He had been given a gift, a divine solution to the very spiritual decay that had plagued his reign and his health. He had witnessed the power of a true protector, and he understood with absolute certainty what he had to do. This was not a matter for debate among his ministers. It was an imperial command born of direct celestial intervention. He immediately summoned the most renowned artist of the Tang court, the legendary painter Wu Daoist, a master whose skill was said to bring his subjects to life. The emperor, his voice still trembling with a mix of residual fear and exhilaration, described the spectral savior in meticulous detail. The fearsome crimson face, the bulging eyes that saw all deceit, the wild beard, the tattered official's robes, and the mighty demon-slaying sword. He charged Wu Daoist with a task of immense importance: to capture the exact likeness of Zhong Kui, to translate the vision from the ephemeral world of dreams into a tangible, powerful image for the entire empire to see. This was no mere artistic commission. It was an act of statecraft, a desperate attempt to harness spiritual power for the stability of the realm. The emperor wasn't just ordering a portrait, he was creating a holy icon, a standardized blueprint for protection that would officially recognize and institutionalize Zhong Kui's divine role. Wu Daoist, understanding the gravity of the task, set to work. The legends say he painted with a furious, inspired energy, as if guided by the spirit of Zhong Kui himself. When the painting was complete, it was said to be so vivid, so terrifyingly lifelike, that it seemed the demon Queller might step right out of the silk canvas. The emperor gazed upon the finished work and saw his dream perfectly rendered. He was utterly convinced. Without delay, he issued a monumental decree that would change Chinese folklore forever. He commanded that Wu Daoist's masterwork be copied by teams of court artists, and that these copies be distributed to every corner of the empire. His order was specific and transformative. Every household was to display the image of Zhong Kui on their gates or doors during the New Year's festivities. This was a brilliantly strategic move. The Lunar New Year was, and still is, the most important festival in the Chinese calendar, a time when the veil between the world of the living and the spirit world was believed to be at its thinnest. It was a period of immense celebration, but also of spiritual vulnerability, when malevolent ghosts and wandering demons could easily cross over and cause misfortune in the coming year. By mandating the display of Zhong Kui's image at this precise moment, the emperor was deploying a spiritual army of protectors across his entire kingdom. Each household's door became a guarded gate, each painting a sentinel that would strike fear into evil spirits and ensure a peaceful, prosperous year ahead. This single act of imperial patronage did more than just popularize a folk hero. It effectively canonized Zhong Kui, elevating him from a local ghost story to an officially sanctioned national guardian deity of the Tang state. The emperor's guilt and fear were transformed into a legacy of protection, and Zhong Kui's terrifying visage, once the cause of his ruin, became the most welcome sight in the empire. While the earthly emperor saw only a monstrous face, the celestial bureaucracy of the heavens perceived the true essence of the man. In the grand, cosmic court where souls are weighed not by their appearance but by the unwavering quality of their virtue, Zhong Kui's spirit shone with an almost blinding intensity. His tragic end was not viewed as a failure, but as the ultimate testament to his integrity, a willingness to choose honor over a compromised life. This profound righteousness, combined with his formidable intellect and his first-hand, intimate understanding of human suffering and injustice, made him the singularly perfect candidate for a role no other deity could adequately fill. The Jade Emperor, the supreme ruler of heaven in Chinese mythology, alongside the stern Yama kings who preside over the 10 courts of the underworld, recognized in Zhong Kui a unique and potent combination of attributes. He was a scholar who understood the laws of man and cosmos, a warrior whose spirit had been tempered in the fires of ultimate despair, and a judge who had personally endured the cruelest facets of prejudice. This triad of experiences, academic, martial, and emotional, rendered him uniquely qualified to command the unruly realms of the dead. His divine appointment was not a simple promotion. It was the granting of a celestial mandate, a formal investiture of absolute authority. The underworld courts, a vast and often overwhelming administrative system mirroring the imperial Chinese government, required a leader who could enforce order with both impeccable judgment and unshakable power. Zhong Kui was given the official title of Demon Queller and King of Ghosts, charged with a dual mission that reflected his complex nature. His first duty was that of a celestial marshal, to seek out and vanquish malevolent spirits, demons, and forces of chaos that preyed upon the living. He became the divine exorcist, protecting homes, villages, and the entire empire from supernatural harm. But his second duty revealed a deep, compassionate wisdom. He was also appointed as the judge and protector of lost, lonely, and wronged spirits, those ghosts who, like himself, had suffered injustice and now wandered without peace. He understood their pain, their confusion, and their rage, and could thus offer them not just judgment, but also guidance and, when deserved, redemption. This balance is key to his legend. He is not a mindless destroyer, but a discerning ruler, wielding his sword against true evil while offering a merciful hand to those souls simply seeking their rightful place in the cosmic order. This divine mandate transformed his personal tragedy into a universal benefit, making the protector of all the very man who had been protected by none. So what does it actually mean to be the King of Ghosts? Zhong Kui's divine portfolio is vast and complex, a set of responsibilities that blends the duties of a Supreme Court judge, a chief of police, and a compassionate social worker for the spiritual world. His court is not a single location, but the entire liminal space between the living and the dead, and his work is never done. Perhaps his most solemn duty is acting as a judge for newly arrived souls. Picture the moment of death not as an end, but as a bewildering transition. A soul finds itself untethered, lost, and confused, standing before a figure of immense and terrifying power. But Zhong Kui's judgment is not the cold, impersonal weighing of a soul on some mythical scale. Drawing from his own profound experience with injustice, he serves as a discerning arbiter who looks beyond superficial sins to the core intent of a person's life. He understands nuance, compassion, and the complex reasons behind human failings. For the average soul who lived a decent life, he is a guide, ensuring they find the correct path to their ancestral home or to a peaceful rebirth. For those who are truly malicious, his judgment is swift and severe, but it is always just. He possesses the unique ability to see the entire tapestry of a life, the threads of kindness, the stains of cruelty, and the mitigating circumstances, allowing him to render a verdict that is both final and deeply fair. This role as judge naturally extends to his function as the celestial enforcer, the punisher of evil spirits. The spirit world is not a peaceful paradise. It is teeming with restless entities known as UGLY, or hungry ghosts, souls who died with grievances through violent means or with overwhelming worldly attachments. These spirits can become malevolent, lashing out at the living out of envy or spite. Then there are the true demons, the UGLY, born from negative energy or dark magic, whose sole purpose is to spread chaos and suffering. This is where Zhong Kui's terrifying visage becomes his greatest tool. He patrols the shadowy borders between worlds, his demon-subduing sword at the ready. When he encounters a spirit that refuses peace and actively seeks to harm the living, his response is absolute. He doesn't merely banish them, he captures, subdues, and obliterates them with his sword, or in some tales, he devours them, utterly annihilating their negative energy and purifying it. He is the ultimate supernatural authority, the one being all malicious spirits fear, because he represents an inescapable and final justice. Yet his most relatable duty, and the reason for his enduring popularity among the living, is his role as our protector. The ancient Chinese believed that the veil between worlds was thin, especially during certain times of the year like the Ghost Festival. Malevolent spirits could cross over, causing illness, misfortune, and hauntings. Zhong Kui stands as the guardian at this gate. Families would, and in some places still do, paste his image on their front doors, not just as a decoration but as a powerful ward. It's a signal to any wandering spirit that this home is under the direct protection of the King of Ghosts himself. He doesn't wait for calls for help. He actively seeks out and neutralizes threats before they can reach the vulnerable. Think of him as a divine security system, a constant, vigilant shield against the unseen dangers that people genuinely believed could disrupt their lives. This protective aspect transformed him from a distant mythological figure into a personal household guardian, a deeply comforting presence in a world filled with uncertainty. Ultimately, all of these responsibilities serve one grand cosmic purpose: maintaining the delicate balance, the essential harmony known as the Tao between the human and spirit realms. These are not two separate universes but deeply interconnected dimensions. An imbalance in one causes a ripple effect in the other. Widespread human corruption can empower dark spirits, while a surge of malevolent ghost activity can bring plague and disaster to the living. Zhong Kui is the regulator of this spiritual ecosystem. By judging souls fairly, he ensures the underworld doesn't become overcrowded with restless, vengeful spirits. By punishing evil entities, he prevents them from gaining enough power to overwhelm the living world. And by protecting humanity, he safeguards the natural order of life, death, and rebirth. He is the linchpin holding it all together, a force of order chosen precisely because he understood the pain of chaos. His reign proves that true power isn't about perfection. It's about using one's own deepest wounds to heal the world. But a king, especially one presiding over the vast and unruly territories of the spirit world, does not rule alone. Zhong Kui's immense authority is delegated through a council of formidable lieutenants, his legendary 5 ghost generals. These are not mindless minions but powerful spirits in their own right, each a specialist chosen for their unique abilities and each representing a different facet of ghostly power and protection. They are the extended arms of the King of Ghosts, the enforcers of his will, and the reason his vigilant gaze can be everywhere at once. Their origins are as varied as their roles. Some are said to be powerful demons that Zhong Kui himself subdued and then reformed, bending their formidable strength to the cause of order. Others are the spirits of great warriors or wronged officials who, like Zhong Kui, found a higher purpose in death. Together, they form a complete supernatural task force, a balanced system of enforcement that allows Zhong Kui to manage the chaos of the afterlife with impeccable efficiency. While their names and specific attributes can vary across different regional tales and operas, their core functions create a comprehensive framework for maintaining cosmic balance. The first general is often the vanguard, the embodiment of raw power and intimidation. He might be colossal in size, with a thunderous voice that can shake the foundations of the spirit world. His purpose is to confront the most brazen and powerful demons head-on, a shock trooper whose very presence on the battlefield can cause lesser evil spirits to flee in terror. He represents the unstoppable force of divine retribution, the first and most direct answer to any threat that challenges Zhong Kui's authority. Where the first general provides brute force, the second offers cunning and strategy. This general is the master of detection and deception, a spectral spy who can move unseen through the realms to gather intelligence. He can assume different forms, listen to the whispers of plotting demons, and uncover hidden malevolence that seeks to corrupt the living world from the shadows. He is Zhong Kui's eyes and ears, ensuring that no scheme against the natural order goes unnoticed. He represents the critical importance of knowledge and foresight in the eternal struggle between order and chaos. The third general often serves as the jailer and the keeper of order within the spirit ranks themselves. His domain is the containment and restraint of captured evil entities. He might command legions of lesser ghost soldiers or wield mystical artifacts, chains that can bind any demon, bags that can contain infinite chaos, or seals that can imprison malevolent energy for eternity. He is the one who ensures that once a threat is neutralized, it remains neutralized, maintaining the precarious peace within the ghostly bureaucracy. He represents the necessary structures of law and imprisonment, even in the afterlife. A fourth general frequently embodies speed and mobility, acting as Zhong Kui's messenger and rapid response unit. He can traverse the vast distances between the human world, the underworld, and the heavenly realms in an instant, delivering urgent commands or arriving precisely where and when he is needed most. In a realm where threats can emerge anywhere at any time, his ability to be everywhere at once is invaluable. He represents the relentless, ever-moving nature of justice, which cannot be delayed or bogged down by distance. Finally, the fifth general often brings a crucial element of compassion and discernment to the group. While the others excel in combat and capture, this general specializes in assessment and care. He is the one who interacts with the lost souls, the confused newly dead, and the spirits who are more sorrowful than malicious. He can soothe restless spirits, guide them to their proper place, and determine which souls deserve a second chance or a gentler path. This role ensures that Zhong Kui's reign is not one of pure tyranny, but of balanced justice, acknowledging that not every ghost is a demon and that mercy is a component of true power. Together, these five ghost generals form a complete and self-sustaining system of supernatural governance. They are a reflection of Zhong Kui's own complex nature, fierce yet fair, terrifying yet righteous. They allow his legend to expand beyond a single figure into a mythos, a rich tapestry of stories where each general might have their own adventures and exploits under the banner of their king. They are the reason a single image of Zhong Kui on a door is not just a portrait of a protector, but a symbol of an entire army stationed at the threshold, ready to defend the home from any and all spiritual harm. Yet for all his terrifying presence and loyal generals, Zhong Kui's true power as the demon Queller is channeled through a single, legendary artifact, his magical sword. This is no ordinary blade of forged steel. It is a divine instrument, a cosmic key bestowed upon him by the heavens themselves. Known as the Sword of Seven Stars, its power is as profound as its name suggests. The mythology tells us that its essence is directly linked to the seven brilliant stars of the Big Dipper constellation, known in Chinese as the Northern Dipper or Bei Du. This celestial connection is everything. In Chinese cosmology, the Big Dipper is not just a random cluster of stars. It is the very pivot of the sky, the throne of the supreme deity Daomu, the mother of the Dipper, and a fundamental navigational marker for both the physical and spiritual worlds. It governs the changing seasons, dictates the flow of time, and most importantly, holds immense authority over human destiny and the fates of the dead. It is the ultimate symbol of cosmic order. By infusing a sword with the essence of these seven stars, the heavens were granting Zhong Kui nothing less than the concentrated power of celestial order itself, the perfect weapon to wield against the formless chaos of the spirit realm. So what does this sword actually do? Its primary function is to subdue, and it does so with an authority that no demon can resist. When Zhong Kui draws the Sword of Seven Stars, it is said to glow with a cold, silvery light, each of the 7 points on the constellation represented by a luminous point along the blade's length. This light is pure order, and for a demon, a being of pure chaos and negative energy, it is utterly paralyzing. The blade doesn't need to make physical contact to be effective. Its mere presence acts as a spiritual beacon of overwhelming law, causing lesser evil spirits to freeze in their tracks or flee in abject terror. For more powerful entities that dare to stand their ground, the sword strike is a sentence of absolute annihilation. It doesn't just destroy a demon's temporary form, it severs its very connection to the negative energy that gave it life, purifying that energy and scattering it harmlessly back into the cosmos. It is the ultimate tool of exorcism, a divine delete button for spiritual corruption, but its power goes even deeper than simple destruction. The sword is also a masterful tool of discernment, a spiritual scalpel capable of cutting through illusion and deception. Demons are notorious tricksters, masters of disguise who can cloak themselves in pleasing forms to deceive the living. They can appear as beautiful women, lost children, or even revered ancestors to lead people astray. To the human eye, these illusions are perfect, but to the gaze of the Seven Stars sword, they are utterly transparent. The celestial light of the blade reveals the true, monstrous form hiding beneath the glamour, allowing Zhong Kui to see evil for exactly what it is. This power of revelation makes him the perfect judge, ensuring that his justice is never misdirected. He never punishes a mistakenly accused spirit or allows a cunning demon to escape by hiding behind a false face. The sword guarantees that his judgment is always precise, always fair, and always final. The creation myth of the sword is a story in itself, a tale of divine craftsmanship. It was not forged in any earthly furnace by human hands. The most common telling is that it was crafted by the combined efforts of heavenly smiths under the direct guidance of the deity Laozi, the ancient philosopher and central figure of Daoism, who is often venerated as a god. They gathered meteoric iron that had fallen from the heavens, metal already imbued with cosmic energy. Then, through immense spiritual rituals, they drew down the essence of each of the 7 stars of the Big Dipper, weaving their light and power into the very molecular structure of the blade. Each star bestowed a specific attribute, one for authority, another for discernment, a third for purification, and so on. The result was a weapon that was less a piece of metal and more a solidified law of the universe, a law that states order will always triumph over chaos. This sacred origin explains why the sword answers only to Zhong Kui. It recognizes his virtue, his celestial mandate, and his unwavering will for justice. In the hands of any other being, even a well-intentioned one, it would be inert, a mere ornament. But in the grasp of the rightful king of ghosts, it becomes an extension of his own spirit, a perfect fusion of righteous intent and cosmic power. While the demon-subduing sword represents Zhong Kui's power to destroy, his other iconic tool showcases his capacity for control and compassion, the enigmatic fan. This isn't an object for creating a breeze on a hot day. It is a specialized spiritual instrument, often depicted as being crafted from the feathers of a rare, mythical phoenix or a sacred crane. Its construction is as significant as its function. In Chinese symbolism, the phoenix, or feng huang, represents high virtue and grace, a creature of the highest order, while the crane is a symbol of longevity and wisdom, a messenger between heaven and earth. By crafting his fan from their feathers, the object is imbued with their pure, elevated energy, making it the perfect counterbalance to the chaotic, low-level energy of malevolent spirits. It is a tool of celestial origin, designed to handle problems the sword alone cannot solve. The fan's primary and most famous power is its ability to capture and contain evil spirits. When a demon is too cunning to be struck directly, or when a situation calls for restraint rather than obliteration, Zhong Kui will wield the fan. With a single, sweeping gesture, he can unleash a vortex of spiritual wind that sucks the offending entity into the fan itself, trapping it within the lattice of sacred feathers. The captured spirit is then imprisoned, its chaotic energy neutralized and held in stasis. This allows Zhong Kui to transport his captured foes directly to the underworld courts for a formal trial and sentencing, ensuring that the complex bureaucracy of the afterlife is respected. It's the difference between a police officer on the beat making a lawful arrest versus delivering instant, final punishment on the street. The fan ensures that even in the spirit world there is a process, a system of justice that is measured and fair. But its purpose extends far beyond simply being a ghostly net. In many regional operas and folktales, the fan is also known as a wish-granting fan or a peace-giving fan. This reveals its second, more benevolent function. For the lost, confused, or sorrowful spirits who are not evil but simply adrift, those who died with unresolved grief or sudden, traumatic deaths, the fan can be used to soothe their restless energy. A gentle wave can calm their agitation, clear their confusion, and guide them peacefully toward their proper destination in the afterlife. It can even be used to bless the living, with some stories telling of Zhong Kui using it to grant good fortune, health, or prosperity to those he deems worthy. This dual nature makes the fan a perfect symbol of his complete authority. It is both a weapon against chaos and a tool for mercy, capable of enacting punishment or offering profound peace. Yet even the mighty king of ghosts, for all his celestial power and fearsome generals, is not an island unto himself. Beyond the spectral battles and underworld courts, there exists a tender, profoundly human thread connecting him to the world he left behind his sister. While Zhong Kui's legend is dominated by tales of demon quelling and divine justice, the presence of his sister introduces a softer, more relatable dimension to his mythos, reminding us that even the most terrifying protector has a heart that once beat for a family. Her name is often lost to the mists of folklore, but her role is unforgettable. Where Zhong Kui was defined by his shocking ugliness, his sister was celebrated for her remarkable beauty and her virtuous character. She represents the life he was forced to abandon, the ordinary human connections of family, love, and loyalty that ground even the most powerful of deities. Their relationship is one of the most poignant elements of his story. Before his tragic death, Zhong Kui was not just a brilliant scholar, he was also a devoted and protective older brother. They were said to be orphans, relying solely on each other in a world that could be harsh and unforgiving. Zhong Kui, despite facing constant ridicule himself, would have fiercely shielded his sister from the world's cruelty, his love for her forming a core part of his identity. His drive to succeed in the imperial examinations wasn't solely for personal glory. It was to secure a prestigious official post that would allow him to provide a prosperous and secure future for her, to arrange a favorable marriage, and to ensure she would never want for anything. His entire mortal struggle was, in many ways, for her sake. This adds a devastating layer to his palace-step suicide. His despair wasn't just about his own shattered dreams. It was the agonizing realization that he had failed his one remaining family member, that his death would leave her utterly alone and unprotected in the world. This profound sense of familial duty, so brutally severed in life, becomes the emotional core that fuels his compassion in the afterlife. His sister's story doesn't end with his death. In many versions of the legend, particularly those popularized in Chinese opera and folklore, Zhong Kui's devotion to his sister transcends the grave. The most famous tale involves his best friend, Du Ping. Before setting off for the capital to take his exams, Zhong Kui, fearing the uncertainties of his journey, entrusted his beloved sister to Du Ping's care, making him swear to look after her. After Zhong Kui's tragic death, Du Ping, being an honorable man, kept his promise. He cared for her as if she were his own family, and over time, a deep affection grew between them. When the time came for their wedding, Zhong Kui, now the powerful king of ghosts, made a stunning return. He did not come in anger or to disrupt the proceedings. Instead, he arrived with a ghostly procession, not to terrify but to celebrate. He brought with him a magnificent dowry of supernatural treasures, gifts from the underworld to honor his sister and bless her union. This act reveals the depth of his character. He could have been jealous or protective, but his love was selfless. He ensured his sister's happiness and security, fulfilling from beyond the grave the promise he could not keep in life. This story transforms him from a remote, terrifying deity into a relatable figure who understands and values human love, making him all the more worthy of reverence. This enduring bond is why his sister remains a vital, if quiet, cornerstone of his cult. She is the anchor to his humanity, the living reminder that his power is tempered by compassion and personal love. In some household traditions, she is even invoked alongside him, a symbol of domestic harmony and family protection. She represents the idea that true strength isn't just about vanquishing monsters, it's about safeguarding the gentle, beautiful, and vulnerable things in life. Zhong Kui fights the demons of the night so that his sister, and by extension all families, can sleep in peace. He maintains cosmic balance so that ordinary human bonds of love and loyalty can flourish undisturbed. His sister is the reason he never becomes a cold, unfeeling instrument of justice. She is his tether to the world of the living, the eternal proof that beneath the fearsome crimson face of the demon Queller beats the heart of a devoted brother. This unexpected role as a divine matchmaker might seem like a strange departure from his ghostly duties, but it actually emerges from the very core of his legend, his profound, enduring love for his sister. After his tragic death, his greatest earthly regret wasn't his lost career or public shame. It was the knowledge that he had failed to provide for and protect his sister, leaving her alone and vulnerable. When he returned from the underworld with a ghostly procession to personally deliver a lavish dowry for her marriage to his faithful friend Du Ping, he wasn't just righting a personal wrong. He was performing a powerful public act that would forever redefine his relationship with the living. He demonstrated that his authority wasn't limited to punishment. It extended into the realm of blessing, of ensuring happiness and stability for families. For a culture where arranged marriages were the foundation of social order and a woman's future security was entirely dependent on a good match, Zhong Kui's intervention was nothing short of miraculous. He became the ultimate guarantor of a successful union, the celestial older brother who could ensure a sister's safe passage into a prosperous and harmonious married life. This act resonated so deeply that it spawned a unique and enduring tradition. Unmarried women, or the parents of daughters struggling to find a suitable husband, would begin to make offerings and pray to Zhong Kui. They wouldn't ask the terrifying demon Queller to vanquish a foe. They would beseech the compassionate older brother to guide them to a worthy match. They believed he could see into the hearts of men, discerning their true character beyond the superficial charms that might deceive a family. He could sweep away the obstacles of bad luck or malicious gossip that might be preventing a good marriage from taking place. In some regions, it became customary to place his image not just on the front door to keep evil out, but somewhere within the home, often in the room of an unmarried daughter, to invite his benevolent matchmaking energy into the household. This practice beautifully illustrates the Chinese philosophical principle of balance, the yin and yang. Zhong Kui embodies both. He is the ultimate yang, the fierce, active, masculine principle that destroys evil with his sword, but he is also capable of deep yin, the compassionate, nurturing, protective energy that safeguards the vulnerable and fosters love and family harmony. He is a complete protector, defending against external threats while simultaneously nurturing internal well-being. His role as a protector of families extends far beyond matchmaking. During the Ghost Festival, the 7th month of the lunar calendar, the veil between worlds is at its thinnest. This is when all spirits, both benevolent and malevolent, roam the earth. While many deities are invoked for general protection, families with young children have a special reason to call upon Zhong Kui. There's a pervasive folk belief that evil spirits or hungry ghosts might be jealous of the vitality of newborn babies or small children and could attempt to steal their life force or bring them illness. A mother worrying over her child's crib in the dead of night isn't just fearing the abstract unknown, she is fearing a very specific spiritual threat. Zhong Kui, as the king of ghosts, holds absolute authority over all these wandering entities. His image displayed in a child's room or a small charm placed near them is seen as a direct order to any mischievous or malicious spirit to stay away. He is the supernatural guardian who patrols the nursery, ensuring that the most vulnerable members of the family are kept safe from the unseen dangers that the darkest hours might bring. This transforms him from a distant mythological figure into a personal, intimate shield, a comforting presence in the most vulnerable moments of family life. This incredible duality is precisely why his cult endured for centuries while other, more one-dimensional deities faded. He isn't just a symbol of power, he is a symbol of understanding. He knows what it means to be an outsider, to be judged unfairly, to feel the pain of failing those you love, and to desperately want safety and happiness for your family. People don't just respect his power, they feel a personal connection to his story. They see in him a deity who gets it, who understands human struggle at its most fundamental level. A father praying for his daughter's marriage, a mother seeking protection for her infant, they are appealing to the brother and the son within the God. They are trusting that his justice is tempered by the deep empathy that can only come from having lived a full human life, with all its accompanying heartbreak and devotion. This makes his protection feel more personal, more genuine than that of a god who was always divine. Zhong Kui earned his divinity through suffering and integrity, and that hard-won wisdom is what makes him such a relatable and enduring source of comfort. He is the proof that true strength isn't just about the capacity to destroy what is evil, but also the profound compassion to nurture and protect what is good. From the moment Emperor Xuanzong commanded Wu Daoist to capture his spectral vision on silk, Zhong Kui became a permanent fixture in the artist's repertoire, his image evolving across dynasties while his core essence, the terrifying protector with a hidden heart, remained unmistakably constant. In the Tang Dynasty, the depictions were raw and powerful, directly influenced by that first imperial portrait. Artists emphasized his role as a celestial official, often showing him in the ripped robes of a scholar, his wild beard and bulging eyes rendered with a fierce energy meant to inspire both awe and fear. These early images were less about subtle emotion and more about declarative power. He was a divine warrant, a tool of state-sponsored protection. The focus was on his implements of office, the demon-subduing sword held high, a captured ghoul writhing under his boot, establishing the visual language that would define him for centuries. He was the emperor's demon Queller first and foremost, a symbol of imperial authority extended into the spiritual realm. As Chinese art flourished through the Song dynasty, a fascinating shift occurred. The portrayal of Zhong Kui began to soften at the edges, introducing a layer of narrative and compassion that reflected the dynasty's immense advancements in landscape painting and scenes of everyday life. Yes, he was still the formidable Ghost King, but Song artists started placing him in more relatable contexts. We see paintings of Zhong Kui traveling with his sister, his terrifying features softened by a palpable sense of familial duty and care. In one famous work, he is shown fastening her hairpin, a moment of startling tenderness that highlights his dual nature. Other scenes depict him not in the heat of battle, but in moments of rest, drinking wine with his ghostly generals, or even asleep with his minions standing guard. This wasn't a dilution of his power, but a profound humanization. It suggested that his strength was not diminished by his compassion. Rather, his compassion was the very source of his strength. These paintings reassured the viewer that the protector of the home understood the values he was protecting. The Ming and Qing dynasties saw his image explode in popularity and diversify in function, moving from grand scrolls into the realm of popular art and folk prints. This is when Zhong Kui truly became a household staple, his visage mass-produced on inexpensive woodblock prints for display during the New Year and the Ghost Festival. In these works, his appearance becomes almost standardized: the crimson face, the official's hat, the sword, and the fan, a readily recognizable icon of protection that every family could afford. The artistic style became more exaggerated and theatrical, often infused with a hint of humor. He might be shown as a drunken, disheveled figure, yet still completely in command, surrounded by comical, cowering demons. This accessibility made him a folk hero, a god of the people. Yet, even within this popular tradition, master painters continued to explore his complexity. Renowned artists like Ren Xing in the Tang Dynasty created intense, almost self-portrait-like depictions, using Zhong Kui's imposing form and defiant gaze to express their own personal frustrations and righteous anger against a corrupt society, showing how the figure could be a vessel for the artist's own voice. Moving into the modern and contemporary era, Zhong Kui's image has proven to be incredibly resilient, adapting to new mediums and artistic sensibilities while losing none of his symbolic power. He is a favorite subject in traditional Chinese opera, where specific makeup and flamboyant costumes codify his appearance, and his stories are acted out with acrobatic fury and emotional depth. In the 20th century, artists like Zhu Beihong reimagined him, using influences from Western realism to create a more anatomically powerful and psychologically intense figure, his gaze piercing and weary. Today, he appears in everything from intricate jade carvings and bold propaganda posters where he symbolized the nation quelling the demons of imperialism, to video games and anime where his design pays homage to centuries of tradition while making him relevant to a new generation. Throughout this incredible artistic journey, from Tang silk to digital pixels, one thing connects all representations: the unmistakable tension in his face. Whether rendered with delicate ink washes or bold graphic lines, the artist always seeks to capture that crucial duality: the capacity for fearsome wrath in the set of his jaw and the glint in his eye, but also the potential for profound compassion in the slight softening around his mouth, a silent promise that his power is always in the service of the good. Theater became the perfect medium to bring the multifaceted legend of Zhong Kui to life, and Chinese opera in particular embraced him as a star, developing a rich and specialized performance tradition to capture his unique duality. On the operatic stage, he isn't just described, he is experienced. Every aspect of his portrayal, from the specific application of his makeup to the precise flow of his costumes and the powerful, deliberate movements of his body, is a carefully crafted language designed to communicate his complex nature to the audience instantly. Stepping onto the stage, an opera performer doesn't merely play Zhong Kui. He transforms into him, becoming a living, breathing icon of both terror and virtue. This transformation begins with the face, the very feature that defined his mortal tragedy. Opera uses a highly symbolic makeup art known as lian pu, where colors and patterns are not random but convey specific meanings about a character's essence. For Zhong Kui, the makeup artist doesn't aim for realism but for symbolic truth. The base is always a bold, fiery crimson, representing his divine power, fierce energy, and unwavering loyalty. This red is not just painted on, it forms the foundation of his new identity. Over this, the artist uses black and often white to create the exaggerated, fearsome features of his legendary visage. His eyebrows are painted as two sweeping, hooked blades, arching high and angry above his eyes, signifying his constant vigilance and wrath towards evil. His eyes are heavily outlined to make them appear to bulge, creating an intense, all-seeing gaze that can spot deception from across the spirit world. Sometimes a small, delicate butterfly is painted on his nose or cheek, a subtle but poignant symbol of his hidden love for beauty and his softer, compassionate side that exists beneath the terrifying exterior. This intricate facial mask is a map of his soul, allowing an audience to read his entire story at a single glance before he even utters a word. His costume is another masterclass in symbolic storytelling. He wears the robes of a scholar official, a direct reference to the title he earned but was denied in life. The fabric is often rich and luxurious in deep blacks, blues, or dark reds, but it is always intentionally tattered and frayed at the hem and sleeves. These ripped edges tell a powerful tale of their own. They show a man who has fought countless battles through the thorny brambles of the spirit world, a celestial official whose duty keeps him in a state of perpetual, rugged action. He is never shown in pristine, courtly robes because his court is the entire cosmos, and his work is never clean. Tied around his waist is a jade belt, a symbol of his high rank in the underworld bureaucracy. On his feet are thick-soled black boots, perfect for the powerful, stomping movements that define his stage presence. And in his hands he carries his iconic props, the demon-subduing sword, representing his power to destroy evil, and the wish-granting fan, symbolizing his capacity to show mercy and grant peace. Every item is a vital part of his character, an extension of his will. The true magic happens when the performer begins to move. The acting style for Zhong Kui is a unique category known as wusheng, a martial male role that emphasizes power, strength, and imposing stature. His movements are large, deliberate, and grounded. He doesn't glide effortlessly like a noble character. He stomps and strides across the stage with immense weight and purpose, his movements echoing the heavy responsibility he carries. His posture is wide and open, chest out and shoulders back, projecting an aura of unshakable authority. When he performs with his sword, it is not with the light, graceful flair of a warrior, but with brutal, efficient swings and blocks, every motion designed to convey raw, overwhelming force capable of subduing the most powerful demon. Yet, within this formidable physicality, the greatest actors find moments to reveal the man inside the myth. A famous scene in many operas shows Zhong Kui returning home to visit his sister. In these moments, his stomping gait may soften, his towering posture might slump slightly with the weight of fond memory and bittersweet love. His voice, which often booms with righteous command, can drop to a tender, rumbling whisper when speaking to her. The fan, used to capture evil spirits, might be employed to gently cool her or emphasize a point in their conversation with a soft flutter. These subtle shifts are where the genius of the performance lies. The actor must constantly balance two truths, the terrifying king of ghosts and the devoted older brother. He must be able to pivot in an instant from a thunderous roar that shakes the rafters to a moment of quiet sorrow that brings a tear to the audience's eye. This emotional range is what elevates him from a simple monster character to a profound and deeply human tragic hero. Through this powerful fusion of makeup, costume, and movement, Chinese opera doesn't just tell the story of Zhong Kui, it allows the audience to feel his presence. The crashing of the gongs and cymbals that accompany his entrance mimic the chaotic energy of the spirit world he commands. The haunting melody of the erhu that plays during his quieter moments underscores his eternal melancholy. He becomes more than a character in a play. He is a ritual presence on stage, a living exorcism and a blessing rolled into one breathtaking performance. For centuries, audiences have not just watched these operas, they have participated in them, experiencing the catharsis of seeing evil vanquished and the comfort of witnessing unwavering protection, all embodied in the complex, captivating, and ultimately compassionate figure of the ugly scholar who became a god. This deep-rooted connection between Zhong Kui and the fifth lunar month finds its most powerful expression during the Duanwu festival, commonly known in the West as the Dragon Boat Festival. While the racing boats and delicious zongzi rice dumplings are the most visible aspects of the celebration, its ancient heart beats to a rhythm of spiritual purification and protection against malevolent forces. The fifth month, and particularly the fifth day of that month, has long been considered the most inauspicious time of the entire year in Chinese tradition. This period represents the peak of yang energy, an overwhelming, aggressive heat that was believed to cause imbalance in both the natural world and the human body. It was thought that this excessive heat awakened the wudu, the 5 poisonous creatures: centipedes, scorpions, vipers, house lizards, and toads, driving them from their hiding places and making them more active and dangerous. More ominously, this volatile energy was also believed to thin the veil between worlds, allowing malevolent spirits and pestilential demons to cross over more easily, bringing with them disease, misfortune, and chaos. The entire festival, at its core, is a series of rituals designed to re-establish balance, to ward off these spiritual and physical threats, and to purify the home and the body. It is within this context of a community-wide spiritual defense that Zhong Kui's image becomes not just popular but essential. His role in the festival is a perfect extension of his core mythology. As the ultimate demon queller and the appointed judge of all spectral affairs, he is the singularly most qualified deity to patrol the boundaries during this time of heightened vulnerability. Displaying his image on household gates and doors during the Duanwu festival acts as a direct spiritual deterrent. It is the equivalent of posting the most formidable sheriff in town on your front porch during the most crime-ridden night of the year. The belief was that any wandering evil spirit or demon carrying disease, upon seeing his terrifying crimson face and knowing his reputation for swift, brutal justice, would simply turn and flee rather than risk capture or annihilation by his sword. This practice transformed every home into a fortified sanctuary, leveraging Zhong Kui's fearsome reputation to create a protective barrier. Beyond the home, his image was also paraded on placards or incorporated into festive decorations in public spaces, extending his guardianship over entire villages and towns. This communal aspect reinforced the idea that they were all under his watchful, protective gaze during this dangerous time, uniting the community in a shared ritual of defense led by their ghostly king. The association was powerfully reinforced through art and folk custom. Specific types of prints known as Zhong Kui Hua were produced specifically for the Duanwu festival. These were not the elaborate scrolls for the wealthy, but bold, brightly colored woodblock prints affordable for the average family. They depicted him in all his ferocious glory, often shown subduing the 5 poisonous creatures themselves under his boot or capturing tiny, impish demons with his fan. In some prints, he is shown with a commanding gesture directing his 5 ghost generals to sweep a home clean of negative energy. These images served a dual purpose. They were a potent protective charm, but they were also a visual story and a reminder of the festival's purpose. By purchasing and displaying these prints, families were actively participating in an ancient tradition, invoking a celestial power to safeguard their health and happiness for the coming year. The act itself became a ritual of hope and proactive defense, a way for ordinary people to take control of their spiritual well-being during a time of great perceived danger. This tradition beautifully illustrates the practical, living nature of Chinese folk religion. Zhong Kui is not a distant, abstract god to be worshipped from afar. He is a functional part of daily life and seasonal cycles. His integration into the Duanwu festival shows how mythology adapts to meet human needs. People faced a very real, annual fear of summer illnesses and misfortunes, and they deployed the most effective spiritual tool in their cultural arsenal. The connection is so logical and powerful that it feels inevitable, the master of ghosts presiding over the time when ghosts are at their most active. It demonstrates that his worship was deeply empathetic. He was called upon precisely because he understood struggle, having faced his own ultimate calamity, and had transcended it to become the ultimate protector. His image on the door during the 5th month is a lasting symbol of that promise that no matter how dark or inauspicious the time, there is a power that stands guard against the chaos, born from the very heart of injustice and refined into unwavering virtue. The journey of Zhong Kui across the sea to Japan is a fascinating story of cultural adaptation, proving that a truly powerful myth can transcend its origins and find a new home. This transmission wasn't a simple matter of swapping a name. It was a meticulous process of translation and reinterpretation, where the Chinese ghost king was carefully reshaped to fit the unique spiritual landscape of Japan. The legend likely traveled during the Tang Dynasty, a period of immense cultural exchange between China and Japan. Japanese envoys and scholars, deeply immersed in Chinese literature, art, and legal systems, would have encountered the tale of the demon-quelling scholar in official court records, popular stories, and the vibrant paintings that were highly prized imports. They brought these stories back to the Japanese imperial court, where the figure of Zhong Kui, or Shoki as he would become known, immediately captured the imagination of the aristocracy. In his new Japanese context, Shoki's story underwent a subtle but significant refinement. The elaborate, bureaucratic details of the Chinese underworld courts were streamlined. The focus shifted from his role as a judge of the dead to his primary, most compelling function, the absolute and relentless subduing of demons known in Japan as Oni. His tragic backstory, while still present, became less emphasized than his sheer efficacy as a protector. The Japanese court, and later the general populace, were less interested in the scholarly injustice he suffered and more captivated by his power to create a zone of safety. He was adopted as a personal guardian for the emperor and the aristocracy, his image believed to ward off illness and misfortune, much like his original role in China. This adaptation shows how cultures selectively import myths, focusing on the elements that most directly address their own specific anxieties and needs. The Japanese interpretation honed in on Zhong Kui's core utility as an exterminator of evil, making him a sharper, more focused weapon in their own spiritual arsenal. His visual representation in Japan evolved to reflect local sensibilities while maintaining his essential terrifying majesty. Japanese artists depicted Shoki with the same wild beard, fierce bulging eyes, and official's cap, but often rendered him with a slightly more muscular, dynamic physique, poised in a powerful, stomping stance known as fumidashi. He was frequently shown wearing the distinct robes of a Tang Dynasty official, a conscious nod to his exotic Chinese origins that also lent him an air of ancient authority. His demon-subduing sword remained a constant, but his other iconic tool, the fan, became less prominent in many depictions, further underscoring the Japanese emphasis on his martial prowess over his judicial mercy. These artistic choices were deliberate, designed to make him instantly recognizable as a foreign-derived yet fully integrated protector, a figure of immense power whose very otherness contributed to his mystique and effectiveness against native Japanese demons. Perhaps the most profound integration of Shoki into Japanese life was his adoption during the Edo period as a ubiquitous guardian of the home. During this time of relative peace and the rise of a wealthy merchant class, woodblock prints, or ukiyo-e, became enormously popular. Shoki became a favorite subject for masters like Utagawa Kuniyoshi, his image mass-produced and affordable for common people to purchase and display in their homes. This is where he truly became a folk hero. People would hang small prints of Shoki, especially during the Boys' Day festival in May, believing his potent masculine energy would protect their sons and ensure their healthy growth. He was also fervently invoked as a defense against smallpox and other epidemics. His image was pasted on household gates to create a spiritual barrier against the demons of disease. This practice mirrored his Chinese role during the Duanwu festival, demonstrating a shared human impulse to seek powerful protection during times of vulnerability. Despite these adaptations, the heart of the character, the essential paradox that made him so compelling, remained intact. In Japan, just as in China, Shoki is the ultimate outsider who becomes the ultimate protector. His terrifying appearance, which should mark him as a monster, is instead the very source of his authority. his story still carries that powerful message about the danger of superficial judgment and the triumph of inner virtue. He is a figure of righteous fury, yet his purpose is deeply compassionate, to safeguard the health and happiness of ordinary families. This enduring core is why the legend thrived. It wasn't just a foreign story that was copied. It was a universal archetype that resonated deeply with Japanese values of loyalty, strength, and protection. Zhong Kui the Demon Queller stands today as a brilliant example of cultural exchange, a Chinese legend that was lovingly adopted, adapted, and made into an indispensable part of Japan's own rich mythological tapestry. Yet Zhong Kui's journey was far from over, vaulting from ancient screens and temple walls directly into the dazzling global arena of modern pop culture. His iconic visage and compelling origin story have proven to be a goldmine for contemporary storytellers, finding a powerful new resonance in films, television, and especially video games. This transition into the digital age required a careful recalibration. Filmmakers and game designers couldn't just present a 7th century deity unchanged. They had to reinterpret him, often stripping away the complex bureaucratic layers of the underworld to focus on the raw, elemental core of his myth, the ultimate outsider who becomes the ultimate protector, a hero whose greatest strength is hidden behind a monstrous face. This process has seen him reimagined as everything from a troubled action star to a playable digital fighter, yet through every iteration, the soul of the character, his tragic past, his unwavering virtue, and his mastery over the supernatural remains unmistakably intact, proving the timeless power of his legend. The silver screen offered one of the most dramatic and lavish reinterpretations with the 2015 fantasy blockbuster, Zhong Kui, Snow Girl and the Dark Crystal. This film took the ancient tale and infused it with the sweeping scale and visual effects of a modern epic. The filmmakers made a crucial, character-deepening choice by splitting his story into two distinct halves, his mortal life and his divine destiny. We first meet him not as a fearsome queller of demons, but as a young scholar named Zhong Yun, who is not ugly but handsome and filled with ambition. This initial deviation from the myth is brilliant, as it makes his eventual transformation all the more shocking and tragic. His downfall comes not from a pre-existing condition, but from a profound betrayal and a sacrificial act that literally rearranges his face into the terrifying visage we know. This alteration frames his ugliness not as a curse of birth, but as a scar of honor, a permanent physical testament to his inner virtue and the great price he paid for it. The film then follows his struggle to accept this new identity, wrestling with rage and a desire for vengeance before ultimately embracing his role as a guardian. By anchoring his story in an epic romance with the snow demon Xiaoling, the movie connects his personal journey to a much larger battle between the human and spirit worlds, making his internal conflict a catalyst for cosmic balance. It's a classic hero's journey, but one where the hero's call to adventure is etched permanently onto his own skin. While film gave his story epic scale, television allowed for a deeper, more procedural exploration of his duties. Various Chinese television dramas have approached him less as a brooding protagonist and more as the seasoned CEO of the supernatural, the boss of a ghostly precinct where each case is a new demon to catch or a lost soul to save. These series often function like supernatural police procedurals, with Zhong Kui as the chief detective who has seen it all. His iconic ugliness is sometimes softened into a more rugged, unconventional handsomeness, but his trademark beard and intense demeanor are always present. The focus shifts to his brilliant strategic mind and his deep understanding of the criminal psyche of demons. Each episode becomes a morality play, where he must discern between truly evil spirits that need vanquishing and those who are merely lost or wronged, deserving of compassion and guidance. This format brilliantly highlights the dual aspects of his divine role, the warrior and the judge, We see him wield his sword in thrilling action sequences, but we also see him sit in quiet contemplation, weighing the complexities of a spirit's past life before rendering a fair verdict. These shows don't just use him as a weapon, they showcase his wisdom, positioning him as the essential arbiter of justice in a world where the line between good and evil is often hauntingly blurred. However, it is arguably in the interactive realm of video games that Zhong Kui has found his most natural and powerful modern home. Game designers immediately recognized the perfect build for a playable character, a tragic backstory that provides motivation, a clear and compelling power set, and a visually distinctive design that pops on screen. In the multiplayer online battle arena juggernaut Smite, Zhong Kui is not just a character, he is a tanky, crowd-controlling mage who dominates the battlefield. The game faithfully translates his lore into gameplay mechanics. His passive ability allows him to collect demonic essences from defeated enemies, stacking them to increase his own defensive power, a perfect digital metaphor for his role as the subduer and absorber of evil. His ultimate ability sees him unleash the scroll from Wu Daoist's original painting, channeling its power to become a swirling vortex that sucks in and damages all nearby enemy guards. This is a direct, interactive invocation of his most famous myth, allowing players to literally become the demon Queller and experience his wrath firsthand. His in-game dialogue reinforces his complex personality, mixing boasts about his power with melancholy reflections on his isolation, ensuring that even in the heat of battle, players never forget the tragic man behind the monstrous avatar. Beyond Smite, his influence permeates the genre. In role-playing games, he is a frequent inspiration for character archetypes, the wise, gruff mentor with a hidden heart of gold or the cursed warrior who uses his monstrous appearance to intimidate his foes. His image appears as powerful equipment or legendary artifacts. A set of armor might be named Zhong Kui's Vigil, granting protection against dark magic, or a sword might be called the Demon Queller, dealing extra damage to undead enemies. Game narratives often borrow his core conflict, creating characters who are shunned for their appearance, but must rise above prejudice to save the very world that fears them. This widespread adoption demonstrates how his story provides a foundational template for compelling character development, offering a ready-made arc of alienation, resilience, and redemption that resonates deeply with players who themselves often seek to role-play as powerful outcasts finding their place in a world. This seamless migration into global pop culture underscores a universal and enduring appeal. Zhong Kui is the patron saint of misunderstood outsiders, a symbol that our greatest weaknesses can be forged into our most formidable strength. Modern retellings, whether in a cinema, on a television screen, or through a game controller, all latch onto this powerful truth. They remind us that heroism isn't about perfection, it's about using the unique scars of our past to protect the future. He has been reborn in pixels and special effects, not as a dusty relic from a forgotten text, but as a vibrant, relevant icon for the digital age, forever the ugly scholar who became a king, forever the ghost who guards the living. Within the intricate framework of Daoist cosmology, Zhong Kui is far more than a simple folk hero. He is a profound theological symbol, a living paradox who embodies some of the tradition's most foundational principles. Daoism envisions the universe as a vast, interconnected web of energy, a constant flow and interplay between the realms of the living, the dead, and the divine, all governed by the essential balance of the Tao. This system requires regulators, figures who can maintain order within this dynamic equilibrium. Zhong Kui emerges as the ultimate boundary keeper, a celestial official whose very existence bridges the human and spirit worlds. He is not a distant, untouchable god residing in a remote heaven, but a being who moves fluidly between dimensions, his authority recognized in all of them. His role is to patrol the borders, to ensure that the natural order of life, death, and rebirth proceeds without the interference of chaotic, malevolent forces. This makes him a pivotal figure in the spiritual ecosystem, a guardian of the delicate veil that separates our reality from the unseen. His constant vigilance allows for the healthy interaction between these worlds, such as the veneration of ancestors, while preventing the dangerous incursions that could bring disease and disaster. This position grants him a unique form of power that resonates deeply with Daoist thought, authority earned through personal trial rather than divine birthright. Unlike many deities who are always divine, Zhong Kui's divinity was forged in the crucible of profound human suffering and injustice. He achieved his status not through a flawless existence, but by navigating the ultimate failure and transforming it into his greatest strength. This path mirrors key Daoist concepts of alchemical transformation, where base elements are refined into gold, and personal hardship becomes a catalyst for spiritual ascension. His tragic suicide, rather than being a final, hopeless act, becomes the necessary rupture that allowed his true, virtuous nature to break free from the constraints of a superficial world. In the eyes of the Daoist pantheon, his earthly defeat was the very qualification for his celestial promotion. The underworld courts and the Jade Emperor did not see a victim. They saw a soul of such unwavering integrity that it withstood the ultimate test of despair. His subsequent appointment as the demon Queller is a powerful statement that true virtue is not about a perfect life, but about an incorruptible spirit, and that such spirit can be refined and empowered even through the most devastating experiences. Perhaps the most radical theological message Zhong Kui carries is the complete and utter divorce of spiritual worth from physical appearance. In a world, both ancient and modern, that often conflates beauty with goodness and ugliness with evil, Zhong Kui stands as a divine contradiction. His horrifying visage, the very thing that condemned him in the mortal court, becomes the instrument of his sacred duty in the spirit world. Taoism, with its emphasis on looking beyond surface illusions to perceive the underlying essence of things, finds a perfect champion in him. He teaches that a terrifying exterior can house a righteous heart, and conversely, a beautiful form can mask a corrupt spirit. His power to see through demonic disguises is not just a magical ability, it is the manifestation of this core philosophical truth. He judges by the quality of a soul's energy, not by its outer shell, forcing us to confront our own deeply ingrained prejudices and reconsider what truly defines a person's character. He is the ultimate testament to the idea that the Tao flows through all things, regardless of their form, and that divine grace is blind to the aesthetics of the vessel it chooses. Finally, his story offers a profound and compassionate doctrine of redemption, a concept that is sometimes more nuanced in Taoism than in other religious traditions. Zhong Kui is the patron saint of second chances, but his redemption is not granted from an external source. It is actively seized through his own choices after death. He could have easily become a vengeful ghost, a Yuan Gui pouring his fury back upon the world that wronged him. This would have been a predictable, almost justified path. Instead, he consciously channeled his righteous anger into a vow of protection. He took his pain and alchemized it into a purpose that served the cosmic order, transforming personal grievance into universal benefit. This provides a powerful model for Taoist practice, where negative emotions and past traumas are not to be suppressed, but are to be understood, harnessed, and redirected toward harmonious ends. Zhong Kui's reign proves that no fate is truly sealed, that no failure is absolute, and that even the most profound injustice can be redeemed through a commitment to a righteousness greater than oneself. He is a beacon for all who have ever felt cast out, assuring them that their value is not determined by the world's judgment, and that a path of power and purpose always remains open to those who hold true to their inner virtue. Beneath the crimson mask and the legend of underworld courts, Zhong Kui's story resonates on a profoundly human level, speaking directly to some of our deepest psychological wounds and most ardent hopes. At its core, his myth is a powerful allegory for the universal fear of being judged and rejected not for who we are, but for how we look. This primal anxiety is something almost everyone experiences in some form. The chilling dread that our outward appearance, something we often have little control over, will overshadow our inequalities, our talents, our intellect, and our heart. Zhong Kui is the ultimate embodiment of this fear realized. He is the brilliant mind trapped behind a face the world refuses to understand, the worthy candidate deemed unworthy by a shallow and unfair standard. His initial tragedy isn't just a plot point. It's a mirror reflecting our own insecurities about not measuring up, about being cast out from the tribe for failing to meet an arbitrary ideal of acceptability. We feel his humiliation in the grand court because we have all, in smaller ways, felt the sting of not being seen for our true selves. Yet his story doesn't end in despair. It pivots on a profound act of psychological transformation. His suicide, while a tragic end to his mortal life, is also a powerful symbolic rejection of the world's unjust values. It is the ultimate refusal to accept a verdict he knows in his soul is wrong. And from this ultimate low, he begins his most important journey, the alchemical process of turning his pain into his purpose. Psychologically, this is the hero's path of integrating his shadow self. The very trait that caused his rejection, his terrifying ugliness, becomes the foundation of his new identity. He doesn't hide from it, he embraces it, weaponizes it, and uses it as a tool to protect others. His external appearance, once a source of shame, is reframed as a symbol of authority and power. This is a masterclass in resilience, demonstrating that our greatest perceived weaknesses can be reforged into our most formidable strength. The pain of his rejection becomes the fuel for his fierce sense of justice. His intimate understanding of suffering becomes the wellspring of his compassion. He transforms his personal grievance into a universal mission, ensuring that others might be spared the injustice he endured. This transformation speaks directly to a fundamental human desire for a world where justice ultimately prevails, especially when earthly systems fail. The imperial court, representing man-made law and social order, fails Zhong Kui catastrophically. Its judgment is corrupt, biased, and superficial. But the cosmic court of the underworld, representing a higher, divine order, sees the truth. It recognizes his inherent virtue and rewards it with immense power and responsibility. This provides a deep psychological comfort, the idea that even if justice is denied in this life, a truer, more perfect justice exists in the grand scheme of the universe. Zhong Kui becomes the agent of that cosmic justice. He is the avenger for every person who has ever been wronged, the champion who ensures that virtue is recognized and rewarded, even if it has to happen in the afterlife. He fulfills our deep-seated need to believe that the scales will eventually be balanced, that goodness will not forever be trampled by shallow prejudices. Ultimately, his journey is a blueprint for turning inward focus outward, for transmuting personal suffering into empathetic action. Zhong Kui's power isn't just about punishing demons, it's about protecting the vulnerable. His compassion for lost souls stems from his own experience of being lost and cast out. His role as a matchmaker and family guardian grows from his own failed duty to his sister. He uses the lessons of his pain to alleviate the pain of others. This is the highest form of psychological integration. Rather than becoming bitter and seeking to make others suffer as he did, he uses his understanding of suffering to become a more effective healer and protector. He doesn't just conquer the external demons that plague the world, he conquers the internal demons of bitterness, vengeance, and despair that his own trauma could have easily fostered. In doing so, he becomes a timeless symbol of hope, proving that our deepest wounds do not have to define us in a negative way. They can instead become the source of our greatest gifts to the world. From the shattered dreams of a scholar judged unworthy to the awe-inspiring might of a king who commands the unseen, Zhong Kui's journey is one of mythology's most profound transformations. His story begins in the deepest pit of human despair, a crushing rejection based on the shallowest of measures, yet it soars to a conclusion of divine purpose and eternal compassion. He is the ultimate outsider who was granted ultimate authority, not despite his differences, but because of the unwavering strength of character they could not obscure. His terrifying visage, once a curse that ended his life, became the very instrument he uses to protect all lives, a permanent reminder that true power and virtue are qualities of the spirit, never the skin. This enduring legend challenges us to our core, asking us to reflect on our own quick judgments and the unseen potential in those we might overlook. In a world that still often prizes the container over the content, Zhong Kui stands as an immortal testament to the danger of superficiality and the redemptive power of inner goodness. He teaches us that our greatest wounds can become the source of our greatest strength, and that justice, though sometimes delayed in the mortal realm, is the fundamental law of the cosmos. He is more than a ghost king. He is a symbol of hope for anyone who has ever felt invisible, assuring us that our value is not defined by the world's eyes, but by the truth in our own hearts. His legacy, spanning centuries of art, festival, and faith, proves that the most compelling stories are those that speak to our universal humanity. So we turn the conversation over to you. Which mythological figure captures your imagination? Is there a lesser-known deity or a classic hero whose journey you find endlessly fascinating? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We love discovering which legends resonate with you and why. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of the ugly scholar who became a god. Until next time, may your own path be clear of mischievous spirits.